we're going to kick off with this whole idea of, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sustainable-ish and why I think that the sort of ish is all important really in sustainability. So let me see, this is the moment of truth, if the slides are going to work. There we go, brilliant, fab. So just a very brief intro to me. I am Jen, not William. I am an ordinary knackered mum of two, I always say, and I used to be a vet, and my sort of journey into sustainability began when we spent a year buying nothing new, rather randomly. It was about 8 years ago now, and I sort of slightly naively thought it would be quite a fun challenge. And I blogged every day for the year, which actually was harder than buying nothing new. And it really sort of opened my eyes to the climate crisis, I guess. We were still calling it climate change back then. And, you know, this was pre-Greta, this was sort of Attenborough's change in stance, I guess, about highlighting the climate crisis. And I think probably like a lot of us maybe are now, is I'd failed to join the dots really between sort of the things I was buying and the impact it was having, between the things I was buying and the things we were throwing away. And I think I'd also just sort of chosen to look away a lot of the time from the stuff that I guess we're all vaguely aware of, like fast fashion. And but I think to a certain extent we kind of feel like, well, it must be okay if they're allowed to sell 3 t-shirts for £6 or whatever, it must be okay. Somebody somewhere's got to be looking after these people and making sure everything's all right. But actually I sort of realised during that year it's very much not okay, and nobody is looking after these people, and that that I do and that we do as a family have a responsibility, and all the choices that we make have an impact. So now here we are, sort of 8 years on. I've got this amazing sustainable-ish online community. There's sort of 50 or 60,000 people when we look at email lists and various social media platforms, and it's all about taking imperfect eco action. Earlier on this year, I founded the Knackered Mums Eco Club, and that was really driven by a desire to sort of try and challenge these stereotypes a little bit. I think there's a lot of people out there. I see a lot of mums I see a lot of mums in the playground. I don't anymore. We have to do stop and drop. But, you know, a lot of my friends who probably are a bit worried about the climate and are feeling a bit of eco-anxiety, but we're not talking about it. And they probably don't associate themselves or think of themselves as green, and they wouldn't necessarily come and join a sustainable group, but they probably do relate to being knackered mums. So that's the sort of, hopefully, the idea that we can break down these stereotypes and get some more people on board. And I was really fortunate to have my first book published in January, the Sustainable-ish Living Guide. And all of this is just to really make the point that you don't need to be an expert to make change happen. I am very much not an expert. I am not, I'm not an environmental scientist. I'm not, I'm not, I can't go in and assess someone's carbon footprint or anything like that. I'm just somebody who saw something I wanted to change and wanted to try and have an impact. And we can all do that. You know, we don't have to be Greta. We don't have to be Attenborough. We don't even have to have a community of 50,000 people taking imperfect action. We can do it in our own homes, in our own communities. And these ripples really do spread when we start to take action. So I'm just going to very, very briefly talk about the problem, just so we're all on the same page. I'm guessing by the very fact that you're here at a sustainability day, kind of means that you're already aware of the issue and hopefully sort of wanting some inspiration and some ideas for some changes you can make. But I had a chat with one of my school friends the other day and just sort of said to her, are you kind of worried about this? Is it something you're concerned about? And, what do you think things are going to look like in 30 years time? And she was like, well, I don't really know. Fair play to her. She's got two twins. Of course, she's got two twins. She's got twins who are 2 and a 9-year-old. So she's full on busy, but she's got a PhD. She's incredibly intelligent, but she said she just doesn't have time to sit and read massive long social media posts. She doesn't really, unless it comes through on the BBC News app or whatever, she's not seeing it. And I think to a certain extent we're a little bit guilty of assuming a certain amount of knowledge that people have. And I think as a maybe sort of environmental movement, we shy away a little bit from talking about what it might be like and the future that we're facing, because we don't want to scare the pants off people. Because when we scare the pants off people, you get this this sort of massive amount of eco-anxiety and this paralysis, and then from there it's very, very difficult place to start to take action. So we're just going to focus, we're just going to have one slide on this, and then we're going to spend the rest of the presentation talking about solutions and how we can be part of those solutions. But what we're looking at when we're looking at climate change, or the change in global temperatures, and I'm probably teaching my grandma to suck eggs here, because there's probably people far more qualified than me on this call. But we're looking at the change in temperature, the change in carbon dioxide concentrations since the Industrial Revolution, really, and we're at about a 1 degree rise since then, which doesn't sound much, does it? I've got a cup of tea here, and I wouldn't be able to tell you if it was 93 degrees or 92 degrees. I wouldn't be able to tell you if my bath was sort of 1 degree out, but the planet can tell, and it's an important the ecosystems and things that are on the planet depend on this sort of steady state temperature, and depend on climate changes happening very, very slowly, so they have time to adapt to them. And at the moment, they're happening very quickly. So we're already seeing these consequences with more extreme weather, rising sea levels, the polar ice caps melting. And actually, we're on track for at least if nothing changes, for at least 3 degrees of warming by the end of the century, which means that our children, and certainly our grandchildren, will be looking at a vastly different world. There will be, millions, if not billions, of climate refugees. There will be, large tracts of the planet that are uninhabitable, certainly unfarmable. And the current global commitments we've got aren't really enough to prevent temperature rises above 2 degrees, let alone the 1.5 degrees that was set out by the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They said that we really need to take unprecedented action if we're to keep global temperatures below this rise of 1.5 degrees. And when they talk about unprecedented action, it feels quite daunting, doesn't it? It feels like, I don't know, it feels, I had to look up what unprecedented actually meant, and it means doing things we've not done before. So from our governments and our businesses, that means that, it means big policy shifts, that means radically new ways of doing business, but it also means for us that we do things we've not done before. But actually, when we say that's all it is we've got to do things a little bit differently, do things we've not done before. Feels a little bit less daunting when you put it like that. For any of us who are parents, we've had to adapt. We've had to start doing things differently when a small person arrives in our lives. So we can do it, and we can do it relatively easily. And I'm going to talk to you about the fact that, maybe we're doing some things we've not done before, but that can be something like buying an item of food organic from the supermarket that you haven't, replacing one organic food. Apologies. Yes. Yes. Can they watch something on the telly? Yes, they can, if it keeps them quiet. So the decisions we make, and I think David Attenborough has talked about this, the decisions that we make today and certainly in the next 10 years are absolutely critical in ensuring a safe and sustainable world for everybody for the next hundreds of years. So, no pressure at all. So that's the problem. And the solution, I absolutely adore. And actually, I was looking back at reviewing my slides for this, and it's a bit of a quote-tastic presentation, so bear with me, but there are quite a lot of quotes, but hopefully inspiring ones. And this is from Jane Goodall. You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do, what we do every single day makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. But and that makes it sound, and I absolutely adore this quote, but I'm also aware that it tends to, maybe we feel a bit paralyzed then. Oh God, every single decision we make, every single thing we do obviously has an impact, and we've got to decide, do we want it to be positive or negative? And sometimes I just need to get tea cooked, and I just need to get the shopping done, and that's absolutely okay. That is where this sustainable-ish comes in. So for me, it's not about making the best decision all the time, it's about making better decisions more of the time. And I've put this little my attempt at a Venn diagram in here, because this is the Open University after all, and I suspect we're all probably big fans of Venn diagrams. And I get asked all the time, is individual action enough? And no, of course it's not enough. We need businesses to take action. We need governments to take action. But we do have a role to play. I think it's very easy to feel like as individuals and as families and as communities that we don't have power or influence and we can't create change. We absolutely can. And obviously there's this sweet spot where business, government and individuals are all working together, and we've got that lovely green star there, and we're all on the same page, pulling in the same direction, and when we're in that sweet spot, change will happen much more quickly. But actually you can see that there's an overlap as well between us as individuals and families and business. So we have an influence there, and there's an overlap between us as individuals and the government. So actually the choices that we're making, the things that we're choosing to buy or not buy, the interactions that we're having with businesses, they can all absolutely make a difference. So when we're thinking about the influence that we might have on businesses, just have a think about all the public reaction that there was to Blue Planet 2, and the way that actually forced businesses and indeed the government to change. We've just seen a ban come in on plastic straws and stirrers and things. And yes, it's the tip of an iceberg, but it does show us that public voices, public choices do make a difference and do make businesses react. So businesses, ultimately will follow where the money is. So if we're choosing to not buy a certain thing and to support another business that sits more closely with our values, that's kind of putting a message out there. And then actually we can amplify that message by emailing the people that we've chosen not to spend money with, or tweeting or whatever, and saying, look, guys, I really absolutely love your products, but I really don't like the impact that they're having. And actually I've chosen instead to give my money, my hard-earned money, to these people over here. So actually our choices and our voices, I think, are much more powerful than sometimes we give ourselves credit for. And again, the same with government. There's a very important election coming up in the States at the moment. Our vote matters. Sometimes it feels like it doesn't, but it absolutely does. And at local elections, at national elections, but even being aware of who your MP is, being aware of how they voted, and being able, knowing who they are on Twitter, so you can tweet them and ask them, how they're planning to vote on a certain thing. There was a study out in 2017, I think, that said that MPs weren't taking more action on the climate crisis because they weren't being told by their constituents that it was an issue for them. Now, I'm sure that's probably changed with the student strikes and all those sorts of things, and I'm sure they're aware it very much is an issue. But I'm in a quite a sort of the RMP is been in place for years. He's a Conservative. He's in a very safe Conservative seat. He might not feel like it's an issue for his constituents, but I'm one of his constituents. And I have, written to him. I have emailed him. He is very aware that I think it's a problem. And we can all do that in a very, it doesn't take long to write an email. And often with petitions and things, there's template emails. And I absolutely do think that signing online petitions really does count. There was I don't know if any of you guys saw it. There's a charity called City to Sea, and they ran an online campaign petition a couple of years ago to get supermarkets to switch. It's called Switch the Stick, to switch the cotton buds sticks from plastic to cardboard or bamboo. And they got over 100,000 signatures, and now all 8 of the big retailers have signed up to that, and we'll start engaging with them. There's an amazing woman called Ella Daish who's running does a lot of campaigning around plastic in period products. Again, she had an online campaign, and a lot of the I don't think any of the retailers and manufacturers would sort of respond to her or interact with her or engage with her until she got about sort of 100, 150, 200,000 signatures. And now they're sitting up and they're taking action and they're engaging with her. So, that's my sort of soapbox of, please don't worry about signing online petitions. But the takeaway from this is that we do have an impact. We can have an impact as individuals, but remember that we're kind of all interlinked, and that we can absolutely make changes in our own homes and in the things that we're doing. But remember the power of these choices and the power of our voices as well. This stat is just to really sort of demonstrate actually how impactful our choices that we're making every single day are. I discovered this stat when I was researching my book, and I had to kind of double check it, but it comes from a proper It's like the Journal of Industrial Ecology or something like that. It's a properly kind of referenced, peer-reviewed thing. And household consumption is responsible for more than 60% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So, you know, the food that we're eating, the clothes that we're wearing, how we're traveling, these really mundane, dull decisions that we're making every single day, they absolutely do all add up. And the other stat that I think is really quite sort of telling, I guess, is that there was an article out in The Guardian earlier on this year that said that, excuse me, I'm just going to have to quickly check it. The world's richest 10% are responsible for over 50%, about 52% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And that's very easy to look at that stat and think, oh, celebrities and footballers and wags, you know, of course they're flying this way and that way all over the world and probably huge consumers. But actually, to be in the world's wealthiest 10%, your average, your salary needs to be around £27,000 per annum. And that's, you know, yes, that's a lot of money, but that's not a huge amount of money, is it? And I have no idea what you guys' salaries are, but it's not unreasonable to expect that quite a lot of people on this call might have a salary in excess of that. So actually, our consumption is responsible for more than half of global greenhouse gas emissions. So, I mean, again, that's just, I think, quite telling of the fact that you know, we have very high levels of consumption. David Attenborough talked about this recently. I keep talking about David. I mean, I absolutely love David Attenborough. Who doesn't love David Attenborough? And he said that actually, you know, our consumption levels, our quality of life here in the developed world needs to stall. It needs to. So, you know, it's not saying we have to take massive, great big steps backwards. We're not going to go back and live in the 50s and all that sort of thing. But we just need to stall. We need to start being a bit more conscious, a bit more deliberate about the things that we're buying, a bit more thoughtful about the things that we're buying and the impact that it's having. And for me, that was the biggest sort of takeaway, I guess, from our year buying nothing new, was that it forced this stopgap between I want this or I need this and going and getting it, because it's very easy. I think, you know, we're constantly bombarded, and it's not surprising that we've all bought into this sort of consumptive society. That sounds like we've all got TB. This society that's sort of built on consumption and in a very disposable way of looking at things, because we're constantly bombarded with all these messages from advertisers and that, you know, newer is better. We will be happier. We will be more attractive. We will be richer. I don't know, more beautiful if we've got X, Y, and Z. And of course, we all kind of know it's not true, but there, you know, there's no denying there is this kind of endorphin rush we get, isn't there? Or we believe that when we have certain things, it's kind of aspirational, isn't it? We will be a certain type of person. But actually, in doing that year buying nothing new, I had to. Instead of, you know, doing the supermarket shop and seeing a couple of T-shirts, think, oh God, yeah, the kids need a couple of T-shirts, or the kids would really like that, and just chucking it in the trolley. You know, I had to sort of go, okay, so where am I going to get this from? I got to go around the charity shops and hope it's there, or I've got to have a look on eBay, or I've got to ask, you know, on Facebook, see if any of my friends have got something they've grown out of or whatever. And it forced that sort of that stopgap, which gave me enough space to just sort of step back from it and think, do we actually need this? Do I actually want this? And 9 times out of 10, by the time I'd sort of managed to track it down or whatever, we didn't really need or want it anymore anyway. So I think that's a really, really important thing to do, is just to take a breath, take a step back, almost like, you know, with the kids when they say they want something, okay, well, we'll put it on your Christmas list, knowing or hoping that they'll forget about it. And maybe we can start to do a similar thing for ourselves. So all of this might leave you feeling a bit like this, okay? A bit like, oh my God, like there is so much responsibility in the things that we're doing as individuals. And it sounds like there's all these different decisions I'm making every single day, and you're telling me that they add up to 60% of greenhouse gas emissions. And do you know what? Like I said earlier, sometimes I just need to make tea. Sometimes I just need to get an online shop, and I'm, you know, torn up with guilt at the amount of plastic bags and that sort of thing. But at the moment, it's kind of what needs to happen. And it can leave us feeling really quite overwhelmed. It can leave us feeling really quite anxious. And those are places where we get this sort of paralysis, and we feel like we can't do right for doing wrong. And so it's almost easier to then just sort of wait for somebody else to sort it out, or to yeah, just to hope that it all sort of goes away somehow. And sadly, it's not going to go away. So that is where this whole idea of sustainable-ish comes in. You're going to hear, like I said at the beginning, loads of amazing talks today, and you're probably going to end the day with a notebook full of ideas and a brain that's feeling a little bit fried and wondering where to start first and what to do first. Or maybe you'll be full of enthusiasm and you'll be like, yeah, I'm going to do this, 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 and this, and then life intervenes and nothing happens, and you realize that maybe the thing you thought you were going to change was harder, and it all becomes really difficult. So for me, the ish and sustainable-ish is all important. It's all about making the best choices that you can, the choices that work for you, that work for your family, and that hopefully will work for the planet as well. And it's about accepting that we all start from different places. We've all got different challenges and circumstances. No change is too small. We're aiming for progress and not perfection. And we're focusing on the things that we can change and not the things that we can't. Because some things as individuals we can't change. Do you know, like we do our supermarket shop, and plastic is really, really visible, isn't it? I think that's why it's one of the things that probably completely the wrong phrase to use, but it's a bit of a gateway drug, isn't it? It's very visible. It's very easy to see the cause and effect. We drink our bottle of water or whatever, and then we see empty bottles of water out on the street, or we see some horrific sort of images on social media of all this plastic washing up. And when we unload our shopping, again, it can be, it's really visible. We see all these bags and bags of plastic packaging. But sometimes that, some of that needs system change to happen. And I speak to a lot of people who are really frustrated about that. And they're like, I can't do anything about it. And it feels like I can't change anything. And it's like, okay, so let's take a step back. Let's have a look at, if you do want to look at plastic, then let's have a look at plastic in your bathroom. That can be a really easy place to start. Let's have a look at changing your energy supplier. That's a really lovely, easy, but massively impactful thing to do. So rather than just constantly kind of feeling like we're banging our head against a brick wall, trying to change something that needs a lot of other things behind it to change, let's go back and let's have a look at some of the things that we are a bit more in control of. Ooh, it's a bit of Halloween noise there. That was quite exciting. Can everybody just make sure they've got their microphones muted? That would be perfect. And then the only background noise you've got is The Simpsons, so that's fine. And the two pictures there on the right are the sort of triangle at the top is to say that I think that often we think that there's this sort of green hierarchy, that we think that we start at the bottom as the very palest of green and just dipping our toes in, and that we're working our way up to the top, and the place to be, or the perception that in order to be green, we need to be right at the top there. We need to be uber crunchy green. We need to be living off grid and weaving our own yogurt, and that we're working our way from doing nothing up to there in a very linear fashion. But actually, lots of us won't aspire to be at that very top bit, and that's absolutely okay. But also, I think it's much more like this very messy splodge of green that we've got at the bottom, where it's different shades of green in different areas of our life, in lockdown and not in lockdown, when the kids are on half term and when they're not, all those different things. And that's absolutely okay. And that's the whole kind of, if you remember one thing, remember that we're all these big messy green splodges, and that is absolutely all right to be different shades of green around different things. So just some reassurance. And this that I said earlier, it's not about making the best decision 100% of the time. It's about making better decisions more of the time. So there will be times when our decisions are dictated by the amount of time we've got available, and by the budget that we've got, all those kinds of things. But I think it really is about this intention, about this consciousness and this awareness, and about this intention to be doing things better. So it is absolutely okay to not do it all. I don't do it all. I don't think anyone can do it all, especially when you throw family and things into the mix. We've got Christmas coming up, and I always think Christmas is an especially difficult time to try and create changes around, because not only are we trying to create changes ourselves, either as individuals or as families, but also we've got the wider family as well, who might not be on the same page as us. And that's really, really difficult to manage somebody else. Like you might have decided, well, we don't want to buy the kids any more really sort of flimsy plastic toys or whatever, but you can't kind of dictate to other people really what they buy your kids or what they spend their money on. So it becomes really, really difficult. So just remember that it's okay. It's okay not to do it all. It's okay to still eat meat and to still drive a car, but maybe you eat less meat, and maybe you make a commitment to try and walk or cycle journeys that are under a mile. Like, there are things that we can do that still have an impact without having to do it all. I hope you're all appreciating my PowerPoint skills here with all these snazzy things flying in. It's okay to go for the low-hanging fruit, and by the low-hanging fruit, I mean start with the easy stuff. And in fact, please do this. I don't know if this is true, but I was told once that there's a sort of, when it comes to making change, there's a sort of graph, and actually the first thing you do is really, really hard, and then after that, you know, it sort of tails off. The effort you need becomes easier. You almost need, it takes an awful lot of momentum and effort to make that first step. But once you've made that first step and you realise actually it wasn't that bad, that gives you more momentum to sort of carry on and make other changes. So if we're talking about low-hanging fruit, I know Joe's coming on to talk to you about Geeky, and she's got some amazing ideas, and there are loads of brilliant ideas on the Geeky website. But some of the things that maybe we think of as being hard work, but like changing energy supplier, that's actually pretty low-hanging fruit and pretty big impact as well. If we're talking about plastic, you know, look at the plastic water bottles, the disposable coffee cups. And I know it's harder at the moment, but you know, maybe you can say, actually, if they won't do it in a reusable cup, then maybe I'm going to go without my coffee just for a week, or maybe, and see how I get on with that. There's a brilliant campaign again by the charity City to Sea called Contactless Coffee, whereby they have a video up there that shows coffee shops how they can do a coffee in a reusable mug without the barista having to touch the coffee cup. And that's a really lovely thing to maybe to share with your independent coffee shop, and just say, look, I know you guys were really making an effort on this before the pandemic, and I know it's really difficult to know what's the best thing to do, but actually there's research out there that shows that disposables aren't any safer, and if you're worried about it, you know, could you consider doing it a bit like this, and show them the video, or, you know, send them the video via social media and ask. And again, that's another really great way of making our voices heard. So absolutely go for the low hanging fruit, you know, go for the remembering your reusable carrier bags. That is a lot of this stuff is about behavior change. It's so it's not necessarily about having shiny new sustainable things. It's about remembering to take these shiny new reusable things with us, because reusables actually take a lot more energy and resources to make them. There's a statistic by the environmental charity Hubbub that I think something like 69% of us have a reusable coffee cup. Only 1 in 6 of those 69% remember to take them out with them every single time. So, you know, I'm sure can all sort of slightly shamefacedly look at the cupboard we've got full of reusable water bottles and reusable coffee cups, and the stash we've got of reusable tote bags under the stairs. But that doesn't necessarily help us remember to take them with us. So think about the things that we can do to make that behavior change a little bit easier. Can we keep a reusable bag in the car? Can we keep a reusable bag in our handbag or our backpack? Can we put a post-it on our phones that reminds us to take our water bottles with us, or whatever? But let's just think of some ideas that make it easier for us to do these things. But absolutely go for the easy things first. Oh, where are we? There we go. Start from where you are. Don't worry about where other people are. Don't worry about the fact that so-and-so down the road is already doing like all these amazing things, or actually that so-and-so down the road isn't doing anything. And that's really frustrating. Start from where you are, with the things that you've got, with the budget that you've got and the time that you've got, and make a plan that works for you. It's absolutely okay to do that. Be imperfect. It's absolutely okay to be imperfect. This is the kind of running theme throughout this. I am very, very imperfect. I wrote a blog post recently about the 10 things I still do that make me a really rubbish environmentalist. And this is after 8 years. It is absolutely okay to be perfect. There's a brilliant quote. Let me just see. I've got my little slides here, see if it's coming up. Yeah, there's a brilliant quote coming up, actually. We don't need a handful of people doing the quote comes from Anne-Marie Bonneau, who's the zero waste chef on social media. It says, we don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly. So it is absolutely okay. And your version of perfect will be somebody else's imperfect. And again, that is absolutely okay. On a similar theme, it's okay to not live up to someone else's idea of what it means to be green. Someone else might be, veganism is a really polarizing debate within the sort of environmental community. There are lots of people that, we still eat meat, we're not vegan. We do it very consciously and we're very thoughtful about the meat that we buy, and we eat less meat. But I have had people not attack, that's probably too strong a word, but quite strongly criticize me for still eating meat. There will be some people who say you shouldn't ever fly if you're an environmentalist. There will be some people that say, you should never, ever, ever use a disposable cup of coffee, and all these kinds of different things. But somebody else they don't know what circumstances you've got, what challenges you've got going on at home, the other things that you're juggling, and it is absolutely okay. I think one of the things we really need to move away from is one of the things that can be really off-putting for people wanting to get started is that they will come into, say, an environmental Facebook group or something and sort of dip their toes in. And there's lots of people out there very quick to sort of bash them with this big green judgy bashy stick, saying that, well, that's not green, or that's not green enough, or you should be doing this. But it's all right to be doing what you have your idea of what green and sustainable is. That is absolutely okay. It's okay to take, I pressed the button too many times. It's okay to take baby steps. Sometimes it can feel like very much like we're not doing enough. Once we start to sort of realize all these issues, and it feels like very much, I felt during our year buying nothing new, like I'd opened this massive can of worms, and that I wished I could sort of put it all back in the can and ignore it. But it's okay to take baby steps. So if you've decided you want to try and maybe get plastic-free milk, and you want to get glass a delivery. So the first actual baby step to do is maybe knock on your neighbour's door who you see get a delivery and ask them where they get it from. And that is that all these baby steps really, really do add up. No step is too small. It's also all right to park something for a bit if it starts to feel too hard, because otherwise, if it just feels like a drag, if it just feels like it's really hard work, we're going to start to resent it, and we're not going to want to. That's not a great place to be making change from. So maybe park that thing, like I talked about the plastic in your shopping. Park that thing for a bit and have a look around and see if there's something else that you can do. So this is where it becomes a bit quote-tastic. This is my adaptation of this quote from Anne-Marie, the zero waste chef. So we don't need a handful of people doing sustainable living perfectly. We need millions of us doing it imperfectly. There's another great quote that I saw was like, what if 8 billion people believed they could make a difference? What if we all believed that our individual actions, the little things we were doing every day, made a difference? Then wow, what an absolutely amazing impact we could make. This is another great one I love. We don't have to engage in grand heroic actions to participate in change. Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. So it can be very easy, I said at the beginning, to feel like we need to be a Greta, or we need to be David Attenborough, or we need to be a person of influence to be making a difference. And we absolutely don't. We can be making a difference in our own sort of household, in our own family. And in our own communities as well. Remember that Venn diagram, like we all, the vast majority of us will work, or we will be involved with other people in some capacity. So again, you've got this amazing day going on here at the Open University. So maybe, find out how you can get involved with the Green Team, what help they need, what things you can be doing to encourage it. And then also let your friends and family know that you've come to this amazing day today. And maybe if there's an action that you've decided to take, you share that on social media. And sometimes, we share stuff on social media and it can feel like it's tumbleweed, like nobody reacts, but we just never know what people will have taken from the stuff that we're sharing and the stuff that we're posting. And, I'm very guilty of shying away from having these kinds of conversations in person with friends and family, because I don't want to be that person that they're all rolling their eyes at. But maybe we can just say, oh my God, I went to this seminar and they suggested changing energy and I've done that. And you know what? It saved me some money and it was really easy. And there are some really nice, easy conversation starters that we can do. So we can absolutely, maybe not, transform the world as individuals, but we can transform our world and we can help to shape the changes that are going on around us, because everybody is an individual. Trump is an individual. Can you imagine if he was on board with this? Boris Johnson is an individual. The head of Coca-Cola is an individual. Can you imagine if they just decided that actually they were going to create real meaningful change around this? And we can all do that in our own workplaces as well. But my caveat behind that is without action, nothing changes. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So what I would absolutely love to come out of today, and I'm sure that Lucy and the rest of the Green team would love as well, is for you guys to all have, even if it's just one thing that you've decided to change, because otherwise it's just been a lovely way to spend a day. And it's, I love coming and doing these talks and I love coming and chatting to people. But unless something changes, it's kind of, it's been a nice way to spend an hour and for you guys to spend a day, but we really need action for these things to change. So my invitation to you would be, I don't know if you're going to have some kind of pledge wall or something to come out of this at the end, but that you have one thing that you're going to change, and you're going to change maybe in the next week or so, to give yourself a bit of a deadline, because it's very easy to read a book or to come to a day like this and to leave feeling really inspired, and then suddenly you're back at work and you're trying to occupy the kids as well or whatever, and it becomes very difficult to make this thing happen. So one thing, doesn't matter how small, but give yourself a deadline to try and actually make it happen as well. I think I'm doing all right for time. So that's my invitation to you. What will you change today, or what will you change over the next week? I know I haven't given you lots of hints and tips and things in this talk, because I know that you've got loads of that coming up today. And what I really wanted to do as this sort of introduction is this reassurance that no change is too small, this reassurance that it's okay to do things and to get them wrong, this reassurance that it's okay to do things imperfectly. I'll give you a great example, is that one of the if you read any kind of zero waste blog or whatever, the easiest change you can make is soap. Switch from your shower gel or your hand wash to soap. Right, okay, I'm going to do that. So I actually even learned how to make soap. I made my own soap and had it all there. And the kids just didn't wash their hands. And my husband moaned about, he didn't really like the way it made his skin feel. And we had loads of soap scum around the shower and the sinks. And I was trying a shampoo bar and I just made my hair feel revolting. And we tried for about a year. And in the end, I just went, this really isn't working for any of us. So we came up with it's not a plastic-free solution, but it's a plastic-free-ish solution. And that's that we buy big 5-litre tubs, 5-litre bottles of Faith in Nature shower gel, and we use that to refill our own, and we use it for the hand wash and things as well. That's our compromise. It's not perfect, but it's what works for us right now. And it might be that, when the kids leave home, maybe we'll have another go at soap or something like that. But it's all about finding what works for you, and that is absolutely okay. So that is my invitation to you, to ask you, what will you change today or in the next 7 days as a result of this amazing series of talks? Because yes, it's okay to do it imperfectly, but we do absolutely need to do something. So I think that's me.